What's up, witches? Welcome to another episode of the BetterWitch podcast, presented by the Modern Witch Network. I'm your host, Allie, aka BronxWitch. I'm a tarot reader, Reiki healer, and owner of BronxWitch HeadQuarters, a conjure shop and witchy workshare space in the Bronx, New York. And I'm going to be coming to you every week with a new topic and perhaps a guest co-host to share our real-life experiences and some of the things that we've learned along the way as practicing witches. Because when we know better, we witch better. Today's guest co-host is Mint Faery. Mint, aka Mint Faery, is a 40-year-old queer witch and counselor from Philly. They've been a practicing eclectic witch for about 25 years, give or take. Their passion when it comes to the craft is to maintain a strong connection with nature and to give as much energy to the concept of universal love as possible. They are a yarn-slinging, fantasy-loving nerd who believes that laughter is the best medicine and that you should have cake for breakfast at least once a week. You can find Mint Faery by the same name on YouTube and Instagram. All right. So I think we were getting started with talking about my fears.
Yeah, you're talking about your fears.
My fears of the fae folk, and it's something that in all of my years of practice I've always just stayed away from, mostly because of what are probably, I recognize, misconceptions on my part. But it does just seem like it's a big world. It's a hard world to navigate. Maybe the rules are different, like I was saying, and the idea is we can maybe make things a little bit easier for folks by like dispelling some of that a little bit. But then I was watching some of your videos where you're talking about your experiences with fairy folk, and I was like, she's not dispelling anything because now I'm scared again.
I don't dispel anything.
Now I'm scared again. I thought you were going to tell me like it's all sweet. Everyone's like a little Tinkerbell. Like, don't worry about it. And you were like, okay, let me tell you guys about this fever dream I had and these creatures that I saw. And I was like, oh shit. But I do appreciate that you like keep it real about that experience. So maybe you can share a little bit about what that world is like for you and your experiences of like seeing it and stuff like that, and what it's been like, I guess, just experiencing like such a wild world of being, like what's that been like?
It can be very frightening, it's been very interesting. Let me put it that way. Before I'm just like, it's terrifying. It's interesting, because it is, being at such a young age, being able to see and feel these types of things has been kind of odd. And I think because I was so young, it made it easier for me to just accept it and feel comfortable with it and talking about it. Because if it had started happening when I was an adult, I would just be like, in a home, you know what I mean?
You'd be like, I lost it. That's it.
Yeah. Like I done. Yeah. And being able to like function normally and like live my life and know what is, reality and what isn't reality and what I'm kind of like seeing all the time, it makes it a lot easier knowing that these are things that I've grown up seeing and knowing and feeling, and not feeling like it's led me off the deep end. I don't feel like I'm like scatterbrained and like crazy and like looking around, or you know what I mean? I don't feel like I've lost it,
Yeah, thank goodness.
It definitely feels like it's just an extra sense, it's an extra kind of feeling, it's kind of like honing your intuition and being able to feel and hear things from your higher self. It's just like being able to feel and hear things from another realm. It's just like something that's next to you that you recognize as different, not a part of the world that you're seeing, but that's still there. So it can be a little bit scary if you are so cemented in the human reality that we've created and like the human society that we've created. If you're so cemented in that and you completely deal with that with all of your mind, then it can be really scary, you know. Um, these things that are um, frightening looking, you know, the Fae are not all, they're not really pretty. They're not like Tinkerbell, you know, they don't look like that. They can, you know, they can look anywhere they want to look, but if you're seeing them without them noticing, you're seeing them, they're going to be in their natural form. And that does look a lot different than things that we're used to. So, you know, elongated limbs and like elongated like faces and huge eyes and like hollowed sockets, bony fingers and you know, extra joints and stuff like that, like insect-like a lot of the time, very insect-like, but still very beautiful, still very beautiful. It's just our perceptions and our ideas of what beautiful is are very different. So when you see something like that, sometimes it just looks like a monster, you know, it looks like a demon, you know,
Right.
which
Yeah.
is why we have those terms, you know, which is why people think that this must be, you know, evil because it doesn't look like what I'm used to as being beautiful.
Mm.
So it has been it's very interesting, very eye-opening, and it definitely draws on that part of you that um, uses a different sense to to perceive life. You know, if you it draws on that part of you that maybe sees an insect and thinks like this is something that's outside of myself. It's very different than me, but it still has a life. It still has an entire existence. It has an entire like you know family and
Mm-hmm.
lifestyle. You know, you
Mm-hmm.
really have to think about that as being just not a part of your life, not a part of this human existence, but something that's different, but still worthy of being what it is, still worthy of its own, you know, entire happiness and existence.
Yeah.
It's the rules are different, you know, everything is different. But it's really cool. It's a really cool type of thing and studying folklore and studying all of these like instances where people have had these experiences with the Fae, it's it's very like reassuring that so many people see and feel these same things and understand that it's a different type of world and they just accept it and continue
Yeah.
with their lives, you know. It's really interesting.
Yeah. Well, and I'm glad that you mentioned that it's a different world and stuff, because one thing that I wanted to ask you was if you could maybe define the Fae for me, really. This is
Mhm.
really all for me, all the listeners and viewers. You guys just
Okay.
tag along. I'm just
Yeah.
really excited to have the opportunity to talk to someone about it, because it's something that, it's a whole genre of practice.
Mhm.
So it's hard to not know about it, but to actually speak to someone who really engages with them regularly is really exciting for me, because now I get to ask all of my like annoying little questions.
Yeah. Oh
But
yeah.
that's definitely one of them. For you, what is a fairy? Because when you talk about them, you talk about everything from things that maybe fall within that sort of more traditional idea of like a
Mhm.
sprite or small type of being that seems very, maybe even almost angelic or what have you.
Mhm.
But then you also talk about things like trolls and gnomes and demons and succubi, and it sounds like the fairy world is really large, and
Mhm.
the beings that fall into the category of the fae is quite broad. So,
Mhm.
what if someone's asking out there, what is a fairy? What might
Mhm.
you even say?
Okay, so from my
What?
perspective, and from the perspective of a lot of people that um, live this dual like human fairy life, everything unexplained is fae.
Mm,
Everything, you know, gods and
okay.
goddesses, you know, any kind of creature that you can think of that is otherworldly falls under the fae umbrella. It's it's everything, any kind of fantastical creature, any kind of spirit is falling into that realm. Even when
Mm.
people have the experiences that they have with like ghosts or um, uh, spirits, those still fall under that same umbrella of being in the Fey realm and maybe showing you just a part of the essence that you can see as a person who's not in the Fey realm. So yeah, trolls, goblins, hobgoblins, mermaids, selkies, undines, everything, everything is
Mm.
falls into the Fey realm because it's just like, the human world we live in. We have animals and insects and, amphibians. We have all of these different things. We have different types of people, and just like that, our world, their world is the same. They're all a part of the Fey like globe. They're all in this world together, and they're all a part of the same species, so to speak, just different types of beings.
Mhm.
So classic fairies, of course, you think of like a winged creature that may be small and adorable, wearing like a leaf as a dress or something like that. And they have this ability to glamour their appearance so that if they wanted to present themselves to you that way, they could. They could show you that this is how they look if they wanted to. If they were, say, coming to a child or someone that they didn't want to frighten, they would
Mm.
take on the appearance of something that was less threatening. Um, or if they were in sort of a playful sort of mood, they would then take on their own form. They would just be themselves and show you what they look like, and they look like things in the natural world. And
Mm.
they're as close to nature as anything can be. They're a part of nature, and it's just where they draw their life force from. So they look like that. They look like stick bugs, or leaves floating on the breeze, or strands of hair flowing through the wind. Anything
Yeah.
that any essence that you can imagine, that's the form that they can take. And a lot of forms we won't even ever be able to see because they are outside of our scope of the imagination. There's something that we can't even imagine how it would look. But any kind of spiritual, energetic essence that is a part of our world and their world is a fairy. Anything that is able to be alive and manipulate the matter that we are all part of, that is a fairy. So
Mm.
the world is incredibly broad, just like ours is.
Yeah. And it seems like, there would be lots of different, almost like cultures, amongst
Mm-hmm.
the Fae people. And so, just like with people where it might be totally impolite to, shake someone's hand in one place,
Mm-hmm.
but totally like the expected norm in another place, it feels like with them, you have that same type of broadness
Yeah.
of behavioral like norms and what's okay and what's an appropriate offering or what's appropriate behavior. And I think that's part of what makes um dealing with the fae maybe a little bit intimidating
Mm-hmm.
at first, because it is sort of like you've got to learn a new language,
Mm-hmm.
maybe kind of specific to the type of fae that you're interested in working with, so that you are at least clear about how to interact with them. So
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk a little bit about interacting with them, because I know that some of the interactions that you have mentioned have been really scary. They've happened when
Yeah.
you were young, and so maybe for folks out there who have been seeing beings that they believe are fairy creatures, either in their homes, their gardens, or where have you. Are there maybe some identifiers or things that people can lean on to say like, yes, I'm feeling more confident that this is what I'm seeing and this is what I'm trying to
Mm-hmm.
interact with, or maybe some pointers on how to interact and find out, like, is it is
Mm-hmm.
it is it faux pas to just ask and just be like, hey, what are these?
Hey, what are you?
Yeah, like
Hi, what's up?
doth thy be a fairy? Like what is going on? Or is that not okay? Like, will they be offended? You know what I mean? So like how do I figure out like how to talk to these beings that either I'm seeing or maybe I just like feel are there, or even maybe I don't and I want to know if they're there and be like, hey, if they're a fairy here, come out. Like how might I dip my toe in the fairy communication?
Well, okay, so there are just countless ways that you can communicate or see, who you're dealing with, what you're dealing with. Um, there are a lot of identifiers, specifically to where you are. Like, say if you're in your home and you feel this presence. There are certain types of fae that do stay with a plot of land or a house or a home. They are interested in tending that home, especially if it was built out of love, or out of something that was pure or beautiful. Yes, if a home was built out of love, they tend to be drawn to that sort of thing because they are drawn to emotions that they don't experience all the time. Emotions are a very human thing, a very like earthy sort of thing. So that's something that they're very drawn to, and they may want to cultivate that space and stay in that space and tend to that space. So if you're in your home and you have a feeling that there's something watching you, it's probably some sort of house fae. So it can be a brownie, which are their tenders of the home. They like to, create beautiful spaces and stay within their kind of realm there. And they are like they're carers for that space. They can be very protective of the space. If you are not protective of it yourself, they tend to want to push people out of that space if they don't love it the way that they do. But they have a very interesting appearance. They're small, they're short in stature, kind of like I would say like 2 feet, sometimes even smaller. Um, they
Two
often
feet.
have like, yeah.
That ain't small.
You don't think 2 feet is small?
2 feet. If I walked into like one of my rooms and a 2 foot tall being was standing there, I'd be like, all right,
I know,
just burn it down. I'm out of here.
Well, it really
2 feet's kind of big.
Depends.
I think, I think my ideal fairy is like, like give me like a little like 4-inch situation, like a little, can you like sit in my hand,
so that's
kind of thing. Okay.
If you encountered something that was that small, that was in your space, chances are it would not be a pleasant encounter.
Really?
A lot of the times, the smaller the fae, the bitier they are. The more they want to.
They're like dogs. They're like how Chihuahuas are like ready to tear you apart.
Yeah,
oh, wow. See, small. I didn't know that.
And what the deal is with Chihuahuas is that they don't want to get stepped on. They don't want to get hurt. They know they're small. So when something knows it's small, it's going to defend itself,
right.
Because it knows it can be trapped. It knows it can be squashed, So the smaller they are, sometimes the more vicious they are. Yeah.
So I'm looking for the big fae. I need me a sleepy giant type Clifford
the
Big Red Dog type fairy.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's what I'm totally, that's my favorite, definitely.
I'm cool with that. Okay. Yeah. That's what I'm looking for. Okay.
Yeah, because like brownies they're a good size. They're a small size, they're very wrinkly. Apparently they have very wrinkly faces, like little potato faces, really, really kindly, like little old ladies, who just want to cultivate a home. But like I said, if you are not someone who takes care of your home, if you don't love your home, if you don't have your heart in it, they want you out of there, man. They don't want you in there. They're like, oh, you don't love this the way that I do. You're not caring for it the way that it should be cared for, so get out. And this is when you start to encounter those scarier, spirits that come in and they scare you, on purpose. This is where people often mistake these sorts of things for poltergeists or ghosts or like demons in their home, and they're pushing me out, they want me to get out, they're slamming doors, they're knocking things down because they don't feel like you are loving or caring for the space the way that they would want you to. So they're like, get out of here, you don't deserve the space. Yeah, the rules are
Yeah.
completely different. They have completely different rules, and they see things in a completely different way. And they are not. They have zero fear of like getting with you. You know what I mean? Like, they don't mess with you. They feel like
Mm-hmm.
they want to.
Yeah,
It's
because they're on
fun.
a whole different plane. They're like, you're not even
Hmm.
on my level. I'm not worried about you. And like,
Yeah.
and I wonder the other day I was thinking about fairies the other day. And I was
Mhm.
like,
As you do.
just as you do, from time to time. And I was like, where are y'all? Like, where I feel like I understand the astral realm, like I
Hmm.
understand like astral projection, creating my astral self. I understand that there's like another me, and I like feel like
My
I
headphones
can.
died.
Oh no.
I'm just like,
No. Well, listen, you can it's funny because like I was gonna say just wear them because I wear headphones all the time, and
hmm
I'm only actually listening to something like 30% of the time. And it's
hmm
because I live in New York City,
Oh,
and
yeah.
we women wear headphones as a shield
The shields for other people.
from the unwanted, mostly men that would like
Yeah.
to talk to you. So I do a lot of like wearing dead headphones. I was going to say
Yeah.
just wear them.
Yeah.
But you probably can't hear.
Yeah, I can hear really well. Actually, surprisingly, I thought it would be worse, but I can hear
Yeah.
really well, so it's fine.
Okay, good.
Hmm.
But yeah, so I was thinking about the Fae,
Yeah.
and I was like, you know what? Where are you guys? Because I feel like anytime that I have like astral traveled or felt like I
Mm-hmm.
was seeing my astral self or things like that, I don't feel like I've ever interacted with something that I would identify as a Fae being. And I feel like they exist in a different world, but also in our world. Is that how
Yeah.
you feel about them too? Like they're here and they're also not here. Like, you know how they say Bigfoot? And
Ah,
the reason we
I
don't,
love Bigfoot.
I was wondering this the other day, and I was like, wait a minute, if Fae creatures are any of the unknown,
Hmm.
and they could be big, small, whatever,
Yes.
is Bigfoot maybe a Fae being by that definition?
Absolutely.
Because the theory is that Bigfoot is the reason why we can't really find more evidence or whatever is because they travel kind of
Between
into
realms.
our world and then into a different realm where they really exist, and they kind of pop into ours. And so I was like, oh, is that maybe what Fae world is? It's like another dimension that's connected to ours, but it's not necessarily the astral or like the dream world. It's like its own place. Is that
Exactly.
how it feels?
Exactly. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of like the world. Oops, sorry, buddy. I'm stepping on kitties. Like the world next to ours. So I like to think of it as like, when if you move your hand and you see trails, you know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm talking about? Like if
Yeah.
yeah. So that trail that you see, that's kind of like the world that they're in. You know what
Oh,
I mean? They're right next to us. They're right here. They're sitting right
yeah.
here on my desk.
Yeah.
But because I can't see between that little trail right now, I can't see them. They're on top of us all the time. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They're
Mm-hmm.
standing next to us. They're like making faces in our face right now, and we just can't see them.
Mm-hmm.
They're just in the corner of our eye. They're in that space between waking and sleeping. They're in that in between space,
Mm-hmm.
and they exist all the time around us. And sometimes there are pockets or spaces where we can we can see them and they can see us, and that's when you get that Bigfoot glimpse. That's when you see Bigfoot, the Loch Ness
Yeah.
monster glimpse,
Yeah.
because you're in between that space. So there are a lot of different ways that you can see that kind of space without seeing it. Some people say if you squint your eyes a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
you can see it. There's
Mm-hmm.
there's that in between is where they exist. In between.
I personally like the standing in doorways.
Mm-hmm.
place kind of thing. I always feel like I have not had that many personal Fae experiences, but anytime that I have it, I feel like it's been near a doorway or around a doorway, or even like a natural doorway, like some
Yeah,
type of
between
like
trees.
a path, yeah, in between trees or in between rocks or whatever, where it's like, this feels like a door, this feels like a path down here.
Mhm.
And that in between space is like, it's hard to describe, because it's like, what is that space in a doorway like? Is it this room or is it that room?
Mhm.
It's like, I don't really know what this is, a kind of a place, and it feels like that's where
Exactly.
they're where they live from. So if I am, a witch on my journey, and I feel called to the Fae, or I'm interested in learning more about them, um how do you feel about like altars or leaving offerings out? Because I have heard some kind of like, stories of folks like leaving either the wrong offering or leaving out offerings and like attracting fairies that they were not really like ready for, or things like
Mhm.
that. So like, how do you feel about like setting up altars or leaving out offerings to start the relationship, like as a way of getting started? Is that too much, or is that
Okay, so
cool?
I'm gonna say it really depends on the person and what your intentions are, and why you want to work with them. Remember, like with the Fae, there's no deception. You can't deceive them.
Okay.
You can't say, oh, I'm going to do this and hope that they can, they'll come to me so that I can use them for that. You can't use them in a way that you just want to. They're not like, I don't even know what word to use. They're
They're not
not
like puppets.
they're
They're
not like
not
a
like
tool.
for you to
Yeah,
control or
yeah, they're not a
whatever. Like
tool.
they
You know
got
what I
their own
mean?
thing going on.
Yeah, yeah. They're like super high maintenance girlfriends. So if you are ready, and if you know that your heart is pure, and if you just want to make a connection for the sake of it, like I don't know, it really depends on why you want to make a connection. Like honestly, it
Mm,
really does, because if you're trying to be of service to them, that's one thing. If you want to be of service to them, then go for it. If you're trying to work with them for like a mutual relationship, like, you do something for them, they do something for you, then go for it. But really understand the reasoning why you want to work with them. Leaving out offerings is wonderful. I say do that for sure. If you don't want to work with them, or you're kind of just like dipping your toes in, leave your offering outside your home, or in a space that is neutral, that is just you making a statement like, hi, I recognize that you're here. I want to make it so that you recognize that I'm here. That's like opening the door. That's like here's this thing. Have a great day. Having offerings and setting up altars in your home, in your space, is inviting whoever and whatever into your space. So you have to be very specific with what you're looking for. And like I said, I would do the offering outside of your home first, and just kind of make that acknowledgement known, and then move on from there. Decide who or what you want to work with, and for what reason, how long you want that relationship to be, because it will last forever once you start to, open up that door. You have to be cautious, and you have to be aware of how it will affect your life. Because once you invite them into your life, they're going to be there all the time, in times that you don't want them to be there. That's another one of those things. How people warn you about using Ouija boards, because they're like, you're going to open up the world to whatever and whoever, and they're going to come
right.
in. It's the same thing. You're opening up to whoever and whatever, unless you're being very specific. If you leave out like a glass of whiskey, you're going to attract very particular types of fae.
Hmm.
Leave out, like a piece of cake, you're going to attract very particular types of fae. And you'll notice who you're attracting by your own behavior and your own moods, and how things are kind of flowing or not flowing in the relationships you have in your home. So dip in your toes, do lots of research,
Yeah.
research about your area where you live,
what it was like before you lived there, the land that you're on, what that land means to the people around it, or in the space that it's in. Do lots of research about your home, everything about the area before you just start inviting anything in, because depending on what's there or what was there in the past, those beings are still there and they have very specific intentions when it comes to people trying to talk to them. So just really do your research.
Yeah. Okay, so wait, so there were a lot of gems in there right there. So I just want to I want to make sure I got my game plan together. So first of all, I'm doing my research and I'm making sure that I understand, maybe just like the preliminaries of what types of fae are out there, and especially what types of fae might be like prevalent in my area based on geographic layout or history of my home or things like that. And once I've done that, I can maybe set up an altar or give appropriate offerings for that specific type of fae, but I'm going to set it up outside of my house, and I'm going to set it up with a specific intention, and let them know why I'm reaching out to them. And then I'm waiting and paying attention to changes in my environment that might indicate that they are around, they're answering me, whether they're cool with what's going on or they're not interested, etc. So that's the 3-point breakdown, guys. For getting started in the fae life. And I want to, something that you mentioned right at the beginning was about making it clear why it is that you are reaching out to them. And I am so curious as to your own experience in terms of what benefits have come to your life from working with the fae. Because I know for me at this stage, I haven't felt like I needed it necessarily, but I also don't have the best understanding of like what fae creatures can do or tend to do for human people that reach out to them, if anything. So, what can you say has been maybe some of the benefits of working with the fae, and why might I go to the fae for something as opposed to, I don't know, a goddess or an ancestor or something that maybe folks don't consider to fall into the fae realm?
Right. Okay. So here's the thing. For me, my relationship started at a very young age, and I recognized that it was something that was just a part of my existence. So even though it began with fear, I learned to work with it, understand it, and become more acquainted with the realm that I was just being presented. It's my son in the background. So
that's cool.
For me, for me, it just kind of felt like inevitable, that they would be a part of my life. When it came to actually calling on them and working with them, I would do that in times when I felt like I wanted to understand the world around me naturally, understand nature, understand, trees and flowers and plants, and I wanted to understand them more. And so they were kind of like nudging, like knocking at the window, saying, we can tell you more, we can show you more, like this is our thing, let's go. So for me it was like, okay, well, this is an avenue that I will explore with them. And because it was such a huge part of my childhood, being Native and Irish, it was just a huge part of my childhood. It was just kind of inevitable that was the realm that I was going to go into, And for me, working with them, especially with sylphs, it has been a very healing sort of journey. It's a very humbling kind of journey. You learn that you'll never ever know everything. You'll never ever know everything, and you'll never understand fully the behaviors of different types of beings, whether it is from the earth realm or the fairy realm. And that is something that you have to accept. So there's a lot of accepting your limits. There's a lot of accepting what you can and cannot do. There's a lot of exploring different personalities and exploring different ways of life. It's just it's very, very interesting. It's definitely helped me to understand people better, understand how people think and how people are so incredibly like multifaceted, and they're very different, and they have very different like mindsets based on their unique experience. And it has helped me to be more accepting and understanding of people, even if I just feel like they're like weird and I don't, I'm like, oh, this person is so odd, but like
Yeah.
understanding that they're just completely in a different like headspace, and really learning about how they function. And they really helped me to see people in a completely different way. And it has been, like I said, it's been a very healing sort of relationship. Now, when it comes to calling on the Fae instead of calling on someone else, it depends on how your relationship is and what you desire from them. When I do call on them, when we do have that mutual exchange, it usually has to do with nature. It usually has to do with animals or insects or something like that. It usually has to do with like an invasive species of something that's coming in. I heard a story once on it was on the Scary Fairy Godmother's channel, and she was recalling a story from one of her subscribers where there was like a rabid dog in her neighborhood that was attacking children. And
Oh
the owner of that
no.
dog wasn't doing anything. The owner of the dog wasn't doing a damn thing. And
What?
so yeah, because I don't know what his situation was. I don't know, but he
Yeah.
he denied it every time, and they were like, my dog's not, whatever. So she ended up calling on the Fae. She had a very specific relationship with them, and she was like, no one's doing anything about this dog, and the dog is attacking people. And that
Mm-hmm.
was her solution. She was like, I'm going to call on the Fae for this. And like I said, even with people who belong to the fairy faith, deities that we also commune with are Fae to us. So Artemis, who has been like the biggest part of my life since I was a child, to me has a very big fairy energy. So when I do have anything that has to do with animals that I need help with, that's who I call on, but in a different kind of a different way, because to me those deities are Fae. They are high Fae. So that is why the relationship is so strong, because it is within those two realms are kind of mixed together, goddess and Fae kind of being the same thing. So whenever there is some sort of an instance where I need blessings for animals, any kind of animals, say if an animal has passed, then I would call on them for that, for a blessing, or for safe passage to the other world, things like that. Anything that has to do with nature, which is like my basis for everything that I do, I call on them for that kind of for that company, for that blessing, for their presence in whatever working I'm doing that has to do with that.
I need to get some stuff done. Can you guys help me out with this? Two things. I feel I have wanted to, and I haven't done it, but I have wanted to call on the Fae to help with my cat.
Mm-hmm.
She's by herself. She's a lonely apartment cat, and she has never
Yeah.
expressed to me any desire to have friends. I don't think that
Yeah.
she is terribly bothered by it, but
Yeah.
I would like her to have friends, and my husband will not let us get another cat. I want to get her a kitten because I think that would be great. He
Yeah.
thinks that she will probably shred it alive because she's like so antisocial.
Yeah.
But I was like, okay, well, what about a fairy, like a little apartment fairy that could entertain her and things like that. But then I got nervous that I couldn't control it, and I was like, forget it, I'm not going to do that. And then I've heard of people having very sort of like helpful relationships with fairy, whether it's inside their home where they kind of work hand in hand with the fae to keep the home clean or keep an eye out for dangers and like old homes with bad wiring and stuff like that. Or like out in the garden helping to like tend to weeds and stuff like that. And so that's not like made up. People can have that type of a relationship with the Fae. They can get like that involved in your life, like if you want them to.
Yeah, depending on what type you have. Yeah, like I said, brownies, they are great with that. If you're someone who's pure of heart and just very kind and very balanced, then yeah, they will help you with all sorts of household tasks and with house protection. Any tree spirits that you have, near your area will help you with house protection and looking out for, weird stuff going on around your spaces, stuff like that. You can absolutely have those kinds of relationships with them. I have some that help with nightmares, with bad dreams or something that, like any kind of anxiety or anything that I have some that help with that, and they're adorable. Little fuzzy guys that I love. Yeah, you can definitely, and especially like for your cats, I think that's hilarious. That's such an adorable thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, cats, it depends. Some cats and fairies have terrible relationships. They don't like each other because cats are very mischievous. They're very like get and toy with and eat and destroy.
Yeah.
And then there are some that have a really close relationship because they enjoy that and they like to do that together. They're kind of like hunters together.
Yeah.
So, it would probably be more of a relationship where they would be very mischievous together and they would mess things up in your house and knock things down and stuff like that.
Oh boy.
But, I mean, it would be fun for them, but not for you.
But not for me, right? Yeah, no, my cat, Miss Eartha Kitty, her favorite pastime is attempted murder. She likes to not kill things. She likes to catch them and then like let them go and then like catch them again. And it's actually very sad that she gets such thrill from like that's like darker than just killing something. The fact that she like doesn't do it, I'm just like, wow, you are messed up, girl.
Very energy there.
You are messed up. Okay, so that's good. I think that's very like helpful, and I'm wondering because I always like folks to have resources at their disposal and things. Actually, before I get into that, I do want to ask, are there any like big no-nos with building a relationship with Faery that kind of go across the board with all Fae, that they're like, don't do that. That's a no. I just want to leave people with a just don't do these things. If there are any, there may not be, like, because they're so different. They may have.
They're so different. There are a bunch, but they vary. One of the big ones that people think of all the time is saying thank you. Don't say thank you, because thank you is not it's not even exchange for a deed done, number one. And number two, we use it so much that we thank people for things that should come naturally. Like, we thank people for kindness very often because we're so used to people being rude. And so thanking someone who is already kind can sometimes say, well, of course, of course I would do this. Why wouldn't I not do this? It doesn't make sense to thank me for something that is so, like, that should be common. So it's almost an insult, it can almost be seen as an insult. Even exchange is really important. Don't ask for something and then not hold up your end of the bargain. So if say you lose something, like I always lose things, and I look for it profusely before I ask for any help from the Fae, because I know that I will also have to give something in exchange. But if I can't find it, I do ask for help. I say, where can I please have this thing? Whatever it is, can I please have it? And there's always that laughter and ha 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 ha, and you can't even find it. It's right in front of you. Okay, shush, 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 shush. Okay, what are you gonna do? And then I go, okay, I decide what it is that I'm going to do in exchange. Maybe I won't drive my car for a week, or I'll walk everywhere I need to get whatever I'll go and clean up an area, throw away all the trash, or I'll go and make sure that everyone has their recycling bins. And, I'll do some kind of an earth service, or I'll sacrifice something in exchange for finding whatever it is that I need to find. If you don't follow up with the end of the bargain, there will be a repercussion. There just will be. There just is, and it sucks. And that you immediately remember. You're like, oh, why is this happening? You're like,
oh,
I didn't do the thing I said I was going to do.
Right.
So you have to really maintain a balance. Maintain a huge balance. And I mean, you have to take care of your things. You have to take care of your family. You have to take care of animals. That's something that is really important. You have to be aware of yourself and the things that you're affecting, because any kind of disrespect is disrespect itself is a no.
Yeah. I've heard you kind of along what you were saying about if you said that you're going to do something, you have to do it. I have heard, and I think this is true of all spirits, but if you make a promise, broken promises are a big no. But I've just heard and read that when it comes to the Fae, the consequences for broken promises can be very physical consequences. They really happen in this world, you know what I mean? And it's not necessarily psychic or anything. It's oh shit, no, my electric wire blew, or my, the fire got started, kind of
I broke my toe. They're pretty big. They're pretty big. So just honesty is incredibly important. That's the biggest thing, I feel like. Be honest.
The Fae, they keeps it real, so they want you to keep it real too. Well, you have so much information. You have so many great videos with your own personal experiences and just general information and knowledge, and whether it be spell work or things that people are interested in. And I'm wondering if there are some resources that you can share with folks that can get them started on their journey if they want to learn more about the Fae or start working with them in their own lives. Maybe where did you start, or where would you recommend folks start?
I would recommend, there are tons and tons of books out there. There's the Faery Census, which is a great website. There's the Faery Investigation Society, which is it's so cool. Yes. I'm trying to remember what the website is, and I'm looking at my iPad right now to tell you, because I always just have everything ready on my iPad, so I don't remember what things are called all the time.
No, but that's amazing. It's like ghost hunters, but for fairies. You go find them.
You can join it. You can join it and become a member, and there's thousands of members worldwide, and there's so much information on the website, just so much that you can delve into. They have a Reddit thread as well. They have just so much, just a wealth of knowledge and people's experiences. They share them with you. They share books. There's just so much. So Simon Young is the person who has created it, and he's just absolutely delightful. On Scary Fairy Godmother's channel, she's my favorite YouTuber. She's got such a small channel, and I have no idea why, because I love her.
I'm not familiar. I have to check her out. You mentioned her earlier.
I talk about her all the time. I talk about her all the time. I love her. She has a really great interview with Simon Young, who is the founder of the Faery Investigation Society, and he talks about his experiences, other people's experiences, and tons of resources for people here in America, because he's from England, I believe, and they have so much more of a community there than we do here. But it's
and a history.
It's very, very interesting. And the history of fairies, in America, is huge. There are so many fairies, so many tales, but they're just not as common. You don't hear about them as often, because that's not where I don't know. That's not where the books are written, I guess, not where the fairy tales are written. But there's a huge, rich history of fairy culture in America that has been around for thousands of years. There is the book. I'm like looking for it in my in my space to see if I can even find it. Believing in Fairies is one of my favorite books too, but it doesn't really have that much of a history. It just has people's accounts, people's like modern day accounts of fairies, especially like in the city life, like fairies in living in New York and living in places that are very like devoid of natural spaces, but still seeing these kinds of creatures.
Yeah, I actually would be really interested in that because I find that to be that kind of thing really contextualizes stuff for you. You know what I mean? Because when we think of a lot of these beings, we do think of the things of like fairy tales and like 1700s Europe or something, so it is nice. Like for me, the first time that I saw like what I believe was a fairy creature, but I think it was a gnome. But my understanding of gnomes is they're in the Fae world, so it wasn't like a flying thing. It was was like a gnome, and it like jumped into someone's purse. And I was like, oh, that's a very gnome like thing to be doing. So I was like, I think that is what I just saw. But I was like in an event in the Bronx, like in a very urban environment, not really necessarily thinking about trees or being outside. Like we're probably a mile away from the nearest park and things like that, but we were all gathered together, and there were like money rituals and prosperity rituals being done. And so for me it was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. We're doing stuff that would attract their attention. So those types of stories really resonate. So that sounds like a really great book.
Yeah, Believing in Fairies is what it's called. Yeah, it's an older one, but I have one of my favorites for sure. I really love Brian Froud's work, Brian and Wendy Froud, both of their work, because their depictions of the Fae are very realistic to me. Like they're very realistic. They're very close to what I see and what I have experienced. So I always recommend all of their works. They have tons of books with illustrations and their own accounts. They also had, I don't know, it's been a long time since I've been able to find it, but they did a what's it called? A documentary on Brian Froud and his experiences with the Fae, and that was amazing. Like, watching him talk about them was incredible. Man, I could go on and on now. I'm thinking about, there's another channel that I love watching too. I forget what it's called. There's this really sweet man. He's like a fairy hunter on YouTube. And he has these really great, oh man, why can't I find him? He has these really great videos where he walks through the forest and he talks about the Fae, he talks about what types of Fae he sees in the forest, and he gives you descriptions of their physical appearance as well as their behavior and stuff like that. And a lot of them, he's got like tons of like little fake like photoshops, like fairies running in and out of trees and stuff like that. But it's so interesting to hear because he has a lot of knowledge about the folklore as well. And so it's very interesting to.
He's like a Fae guide.
Yeah, and
I like that.
Adorable and whimsical and sweet old guy.
Yeah, well, we'll definitely include, all of these references.
Linking in description all day, because
we'll give all that information to folks because we definitely want to share those resources with people. And I wanted to ask also along the lines of resources because, and this is probably. We can probably table this for like a whole other discussion, which is being a person of color in the fairy world. And so I know, I'm Wiccan. So I have the experience of being a person of color in a world that is very Eurocentric and that doesn't necessarily have a lot of diversity and representation. And I imagine that there's a lot of similarities in terms of experience when it comes to being a POC in the Fae world.
Yeah.
And so for POC out there who are interested in this world, are there resources out there that you know of that either maybe stress diversity in the community or that offer like any of that? Because I know I just became familiar with is it Black Fae Day?
That's what I was about to say. I was just about to say Black Fae Day.
Yes, yeah. I was like, oh my God, I gotta have a Black Fae birthday party theme. Birthday party is what I want to do.
They're great. Their Instagram is wonderful. They have events. They had their first event last year. I didn't get to go to it because I had another event the same week. But I'm hoping that they're going to have another event next year where it's like a 2-day event where they had like a land and sea sort of like fairy festival, and it seems really exciting, and they have lots of resources on their page. And they do lives on Instagram where they discuss the Fae with other creators that are into the fairy realm, and it's a wonderful community, really, really wonderful people. So there's another Instagram page called Brown Sugar Fairies, and they are very similar, where they have lots of like authors that write about fairies, and they're all people of color, and they talk about lots of different fairy culture, and it's just very sweet, very nice people. And I have one of their books, and it's called Saroja's Quest, and it's really, really cute. So I always recommend them as well, Brown Sugar Fairies. And then there are lots of creators, including myself, that are just trying to make this more of an inclusive community, because it's incredibly important, especially to me. Like, I'm 40 and I'm just now finding people that I can talk to about these things, It has been very difficult as a Black person growing up, trying to communicate my desire to be a part of the fairy community. It has been really difficult. So just in recent years have I felt that community was more broad, and that I was able to just express myself and be in that sort of realm. So it's really nice, and it's definitely growing. And I really encourage people to reach out to other creators and to people who are prominent in these types of communities, and like introduce yourself and like have conversations and be a part of it, and don't be afraid to be a part of it. And if spaces are not inclusive, challenge them and say, hey, like, people don't feel safe here. Are you cool with that? Because some people don't even realize it. Some people don't even know that people don't feel safe there, and some people do, and then that's when we say, okay, we let everybody else know, hey, Fairies 106 is not an inclusive space, and they like it that way. So just like stay away from them, but continue to create spaces and continue to insert yourself where you want to belong. And it sucks that we have to like pave this, road, but I mean, I'm totally here for it. I'm totally here to do it because I want people to feel like they can be themselves in any space. It's really important to me. So I say go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that this is, I'm probably going to, for those of you who are listening to all the episodes of this podcast, I'll probably be a little redundant because I keep coming back to community as like a tip or a piece of advice for walking any path or feeling more confident in anything that you're interested in the spiritual world or in the magical world. Finding other folks that understand where you come from, see what you see, experience what you see, experience, or just interested in what you're interested in, is going to make a really big difference in your journey. And for those of us who, I'm 36 this year, and so, much has changed in terms of resources. And so I just encourage everyone to take advantage of the fact that it's 2022 and we have access. For those of us who have access, obviously there's a lot of privilege and stuff associated with that. And I'm very grateful for the access that we have. And so if you are able to use the internet or any of these platforms that are out there to connect with others, definitely do that, because it sounds like the Fae community is growing in its diversity, and that can only continue to be the case if more diverse folks become a part of it. So if you are, if you're interested in the Fae and you're kind of on your own with it, and by all means, if that's what is right for you, then that's absolutely what's right for you. But if you feel like you would benefit from finding community, realize that you're also benefiting the community by reaching out and becoming a part of it. So and even for those who feel like they don't, because I feel like as a solitary practitioner, I hear a lot of people say, I don't want to join a coven because it wouldn't benefit my practice. Like, I'm not interested in changing how I do things for people or doing things in a group and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I totally get that. But also consider how your presence might impact the group. Like maybe it's not even really about finding people that can help you with the Fae. Maybe you have your own relationship with the Fae and you're good, and you've got your own thing going on. But you're being a part of the community might actually just benefit the community and make it stronger and more diverse and more inclusive and bigger and more normalized, and all of these things that we're trying to see happen with all of our paths and all of our traditions. So I'm really glad that you shared those groups with people that they can go and get to know and become a part. Show your face at the next Fae thing.
And there's actually the Maryland Fairy Festival I went to this year with a bunch of friends, and I was really excited because I love going to every fairy festival. There's so many in Pennsylvania and Delaware and Maryland that people don't know about.
Nice.
The one in Maryland was great, and they had a special little, we were dancing and everything, and they had a special call for fairies of color. They're like, come on, fairies of color, come out here, be with us, dance with us. And I was like, yeah,
my heart. Oh, that is so I love that.
So I ran up there and I was like, that's right, people need to see us, people need to know that we're here and that we want to be included, and and they should just open the doors to everybody. So I went up and danced by myself in the rain with a bunch of little kids, and it was fantastic.
I love that. That is so great. Yeah, this is wonderful to be able to talk to you about this topic. I personally feel like I've learned a lot, and I feel more confident about maybe reaching out to some of the unseen beings that live around me, because I definitely love the idea of interacting with maybe some of my apartment spirits and things like that and stuff like that. So I want to thank you so much for being with us. I want to make sure that people know where they can find you. So where can people find you? And, do you have anything going on that we should be looking out for? New videos or info or things we should be tuning into?
Always new videos. I have so many new videos coming out. Wonderful ones. Hair magic video coming soon. Oh man. And reels. I have so many things I have so many reels in the making right now, with more crystal magic, more everyday magic, potion magic. I'm starting a series on potion magic. So we'll be making potions for ritual and stuff like that. You can find me at Mint Fairy everywhere. Watch out for scammers. There's only one Mint Fairy.
Good Lord.
Only one Mint Fairy. That's it. I don't have backup accounts. I don't have Mint Fairy 111. Just Mint Fairy, MINTFAERY. I'm Mint Fairy on YouTube, on Instagram, on TikTok. I think that's all I really use of this thing.
Well, I'm really excited about the hair magic because I just these are my starter twists. I have decided to take the jump and dread my hair. So I will definitely be tuning in to those videos, my dear. So I want to just thank you again so much for your time. Thank you for being here. I want to thank all of the listeners and the watchers for tuning into this episode, and just remind everyone that when we know better, we witch better. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you, witches, for tuning in to another episode of the BetterWitch podcast presented by the Modern Witch Network. New episodes air every week. You can watch the video broadcast on YouTube every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, or listen to the audio version on your favorite podcast platform every Thursday. And if you're a BronxWitch Coven member, join us right after each YouTube broadcast for a live Q&A about the episode. So whether you're watching on YouTube or tuning in on your favorite podcast platform, we want to know your thoughts on today's episode. So please make sure to leave reviews and drop comments wherever you are. You can show support for the podcast by grabbing some sweet merch over on the BronxWitch YouTube channel. And join the BronxWitch Coven on YouTube for behind-the-scenes footage from today's episode and the details on how to join in on those live Q&As. See you in the next episode, and blessed be.